Hi everyone, my name is Agnes Fries, and I am the creator of an online tool called the Grid Designer. The Grid Designer is used to create color charts for multiple crafts. That includes cross stitch, latch hook, crochet, knitting, corner to corner crochet, and pretty much any kind of craft where you would need to create a grid-based color chart. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a personalized Lapghan for a breast cancer patient. Um, We're going to start here with freesworks.com, freese-works.com. And from there, up at the top, you can click on the Get Started page. We're going to find this post here, which is create a customized breast cancer napkin for a loved one. But I'm not going to find it. I could click on it right now. It's in recent posts, but later on, if you're looking for it and it's not in recent posts anymore, the fastest way to find it will be to go to the category list and just say category projects. And then it will bring up a list of all the projects that I've done with the Grid Designer. And right now, the first one here is the breast cancer napkin. So I'm going to click on this picture here, and that will bring up the post. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with a predefined um, Lapghan pattern. This is made for single crochet. If you do it in worsted weight yarn, it'll be about 36 by 44 inches, something like that, with the gauge that I've used in here. We're going to open up the pattern and we're going to customize it by adding the name across the center of it. So we want to go down here to step one. And by the way, all of the steps that I'm going through in this video are also written out here in this blog post. So if you prefer just reading through them or you want extra information, then that information is here. But I'm going to be going through all these steps in this video. So to open the basic pattern, we're going to click on this link right here. So I'm going to click on that. That will open up this basic Lapghan pattern. So that gives us the pink ribbon on a white background. And we're going to modify this in using the Grid Designer by adding a name across here. And if you've never used Grid Designer before, it'll be very easy. Grid Designer doesn't require any logins or anything like that to use. It's all very free and very simple. So we're going to click on Load as Project here. That will start up the Grid Designer. And then a pop-up will come up asking us, telling us that a project has been shared with us. That's the project we're trying to open here, and we're going to click on Load. Okay, so now we have our project ready to edit. And I'm using Chrome here. If you've never used Grid Designer before, I use the Chrome editor most of the time. This also will work in Microsoft Edge and in Firefox and a couple other things. So but I do most of my editing in Chrome. The icons come up better and that kind of thing, so it's a little bit nicer, I think, in there. I'm going to be using this text tool down here on the very bottom, so it's on the right-hand side. It's got a little A on it, and that's for drawing text. And now I just want to show you, I'm going to enable hints here. I just want to show you what happens if you're using Grid Designer for the first time and this is the first time you've clicked on the Draw Text button. Then what happens is this little Draw Text pop-up comes up here to tell you what to do next. And there are hints like this on other buttons too. Um, and once you understand what you're doing and that kind of thing, you can get rid of these by clicking on the checkbox down here and saying, you've got it, don't show me this again. Okay, so I'm going to click on that, but I'm also going to read what this says. Is using the mouse, drag to select a rectangular area where you would like to place text. You can cancel by clicking the green text button again. The green text button is this green button down here. So I'm going to click the got it. I'm going to dismiss the dialog. And now if I wanted to cancel it, I could click the green button again, but I'm going to follow its instructions. And so basically I'm going to drag a rectangle across this screen here. So I'm going to put my left mouse button down here, And then I'm holding the left mouse button down and I'm dragging across, and then I let the mouse button up when I get it large enough. And now, one thing to be aware of is that you do not have to be specific about when you're doing that first rectangle, because you can move this around later on and you can resize the text in here and change the text and do whatever you want. So you can put the box anywhere you want, and it doesn't have to be exactly where you draw it. So you're just getting a starter. Like a starting place just to start, so it has some place to start drawing the text. So that starting rectangle does not matter that much. You want to kind of put it in a general area where you want to draw your text. So let's select ABC here. That's just sample text that's put in. And we're going to put the name Mary in. All right, and it's going to draw it up here. Now, if you want to change the text color, you can pick it here. So you can see it change a little bit. It's like if you change it to yellow, you can see it very clearly. What I'm doing is I'm picking this pink. Now this palette that I'm using is the Red Heart Super Saver palette, and that's predefined. So when you load this project in, it'll have this palette in there. And I'm using the color pink because I think that looks nice over the other colors. Now you can also change some things about the text down here. So this box here lets you select a different font. So you can come in here and you can change it to different types of fonts. And these are all free Google fonts. And if you go to Google Fonts, you could browse the fonts there. If there's some font you'd like to have in here, I can add it to the Grid Designer. Um, I think this looks nice in a script font, so I was using courgette or courget, or how, I don't know how that's pronounced, but I think that looks nice. It's kind of a scripty font. Another one is Dancing Script. Let's see. There it is. That's another possibility. That one comes out a little bit thin. It's kind of nicer to put the bold on, and that looks a little bit better when it's a little bit bold. Okay, so, but I'm going to go back to the courgette and use that one. So, okay. So there I've got that. And to stamp this onto the background, you simply use this apply button down here. You say apply text to the grid, and then you're done. And at this point, you could print this out. There's also a way to print out single crochet instructions for this because it's intended for single crochet. Um, and I'll show you that in a minute. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the name Elizabeth, and I'm going to show you how to make that fit. That's not going to fit at the same size. It's going to go off the screen over here. So I'm going to show you how to deal with like a longer name and how you would resize that. But before I do that, I'm also going to set up a couple of things here that can make it easier for you to center the text on the grid. So one of the things that you can use is something called rule lines, and that's right here under the display menu, display rule lines. And this allows, it sets up the display so that it will draw heavy rule lines at whatever interval you select here. So every 5, every 10, every 20, and you can also just type in a value. If you want a line every two grid cells, that would work too. So I'm going to pick 5 and we'll pick save, and notice that now we have these heavier lines that are drawn on our grid, and so those lines will help us, and it also works for printing. It will print those lines out when we print it later, and that'll help us in counting and figuring out what we're going to do if we're looking at the graph. And it will also help us figure out, like, if we're centering something, it'll be a little easier to figure out exactly where you are from the edge of the thing when you're trying to center something. Now there's another thing that we're going to turn on called show mouse position. Okay, and when I turn that on, as I start to move the mouse, then I get this little bubble that floats around with the mouse, and the numbers on the left-hand side show you the rows that you're at. The numbers on the right-hand side show you the columns that you're at. So the row numbers, there's always two. There's two row numbers and two column numbers. That's because this is telling you the number of rows. If you look at the left side, it says 1, 142. It tells you the number of rows from the top and the number of rows from the bottom. So that if you're trying to center something, when those numbers become the same, so here we are 71, 72 or 72, 71, that's the center of the row area, right? When those numbers become the same, the distance from the top is the same as the distance from the bottom. And likewise, on the right-hand side, there are column numbers here, which also tell you, if we go over here to the left side, we can see 1, 108. So that's one column from the left and 108 from the right. And if we come over here, that's 108 from the left and 1 from the right. And so that will tell you also how you do centering. So if you're just centering something like this and you want to figure out, let's see, go in the wrong direction, where the center is of your graph, you're looking at 54, 55 or 55, 54. So and if you have an even number of, or if you have an odd number of cells, then you'll be able to get both of those numbers to be exactly the same, and that will be a center cell. So this is one way to tell where you're at on the graph by using these numbers. Now, this shows up in a slightly different way when we can move this text around and we'll get bubbles on two corners of that little rectangle, which will kind of tell us where exactly we're positioning that. So I'm going to undo Mary, and now we're going to put text in with a longer name. We're going to use Elizabeth. So I'm clicking on the text tool again. I don't get the hand pop up at this time because I told it not to tell me that anymore. So I'm drawing my rectangle. When I let go of it, then it takes me into the text area like this. And now I type in Elizabeth down here and give it a second and the text will update. Okay, so this goes off the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that by changing this height. So you could type a number in here, but you can also just use the up and down arrows. So I'm going to go down, 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 and we're going to go all the way to, let's see, maybe 18. Okay, so, and now we have it that's small enough that we have a little bit of a margin on each side. And as I move this back and forth, see, right now that bubble that tells me my position on the page is just on the one mouse. But when I grab this, I'm going to put my mouse button down, and as I start to move it, the corners will have bubbles on them also, and it'll tell me how far away I am. And I really want to know, I'm going to position it, up and down just by looking at it. But from right to left, I would like to know how far away I am from the right and the left side. And what I can see is that on the left side, I am 7. It says 7, 102. I'm 7 cells from the left side, and I'm 8 cells from the right side because on the upper right I see 101, 8. And if we moved it 1 to the left, we would have 8 and 7. So that'll be okay. Okay, so we're just going to leave it there, and then we're going to stamp it into place. Stamp. Okay. And so we've centered our text, and when we do the stamp, then it comes out of the text tool, and that's all done. Okay. All right. So now at this point, probably if you're going to be following according to looking at the graph, then you would want to print the graph out. You can also write out single crochet directions if you'd like to have those, written for you. So we're going to do both of those things. So first I'm going to show you how you would just print the graph. I'm going to go to Project, and then you pick Print. Okay, and then we say Print. And now it is printing out the pattern. This portion here that's handled by the browser. So it prints it to whatever printers you have associated with your browser. So, and you can see all the pages going by. So, and at the bottom, then it tells you what the type of yarn is, and it shows you the list of the colors and the color key for the cells up above here. So it goes just from left to right. It prints out the left side, then it does the pages for the right side. Or actually, that was the middle kind of, and then the right side down here. And then you would just click on print, select your printer, click on print, and that would print it for you. All right, so that's one way to do it. Then if you want some additional options, you can go to download. Okay. Download will allow you to download the color key. That's just a list of colors that was at the bottom of what we were just looking at. Or the graph image that will download a PNG file with a picture of the graph. And you could use that to print on in whatever way you want. You could use another tool or something like that to print it. And in the past, what I've done with large graphs is I've printed them on a single sheet of paper using a printing service, like going to Staples. Staples has a very nice web interface where you can just upload your picture to them and have them print it for you, and they'll even mail it to you and all of that stuff. If you're interested in that kind of thing, you should look at my print and download video on YouTube. That shows that how I do that with Staples. And then the other thing you can do is you can download a PDF. The PDF will have both the image and the color key together in it, and it also has an option for writing out directions. So we click on adding written directions. And this one is intended for single crochet, so we want to write out single crochet directions, and then we click download. Okay, and then it depends upon your browser settings exactly what that does, but for mine, it's set up to actually open in this PDF reader. And so I actually see that PDF directly in here. And for most people, it will probably, you might pop up something down here and then you would open it separately. It depends on how your browser is set up, what it does with that. Okay, so here's our graph up above there. And then in the next page, we've got our color key. And then if we scroll down a little farther, then we have our written directions that tell you, how much to chain at the beginning and where to start. And then if you don't like to read the chart, this will tell you how many, single crochets of each color are in any particular uh, row. And the thing to remember is that this is not just the default pattern, but this is the pattern with your name on it. So the name that you've put on here is now part of these directions. These directions are written, for the final pattern, whatever you've edited. And you can see here's the pink. That's the name in here that's being written out. So it's not just the background pattern or whatever, and you have to figure out your name, but because you can actually edit that pattern in the Grid Designer and put your name on it, it becomes part of the pattern, and the Grid Designer can automatically generate the directions for that. Okay, and so that would be your PDF. How you get your PDF file. I think that's about it then. Um, if you have any questions, be sure and leave me a comment down below the video, or you can go to FreezeWorks, and you can always contact me with the contact tab. Click on this, and you can fill in a form that will send an email to me, and we can contact via email. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.